I hadn't heard from Grayson in nearly 4 months. Not a call, not a text, not even a passive-aggressive meme forwarded to make me guess whether he was still angry. So when the invitation came, simple, clean, dinner, just us. I stared at it longer than I should have. No guilt-tripping, no mention of the last conversation that ended in slammed doors and the word ungrateful hanging between us like smoke. Just dinner. I said yes. I spent the afternoon overthinking what to wear. Not because I cared about appearances, but because I didn't know what version of me he expected to show up the mother who saved every spare dollar for his tuition, or the woman who finally said no when he asked for money she didn't owe. His apartment was in the same neighborhood it had always been, but it felt colder when I pulled into the driveway. Too quiet. I saw a second car parked in the guest spot, but I didn't recognize it. Maybe his girlfriend, maybe a neighbor. I didn't ask. I rang the bell. He opened the door with a half smile, polite but unreadable. "Hey, Mom." "Hi," I said, careful not to lean in too fast. I wasn't sure if we were hugging now or just nodding acquaintances. We settled on a light shoulder touch. Neutral, safe, inside. The dining table was already set. 2 plates, 2 glasses, a chicken casserole that smelled too familiar. I noticed my chair had been pulled out, my glass already filled with cranberry juice, no ice, no garnish. Just like I used to drink it when he was little and thought matching cups made dinner feel more like home. "You still like cranberry, right?" he asked. I nodded, even though I hadn't bought any in years. "Yeah, thanks." We sat. He served. Small talk floated between us like dust in the sunlight. Weather, work, gas prices. He asked if I'd been reading anything good lately. I said I'd started a new mystery novel but hadn't finished it yet. He laughed a little. Something about the way he smiled made me feel like the story was already written and I just hadn't figured out the twist yet. Then my phone buzzed in my lap. I glanced down at the screen. More from habit than urgency. The number was unfamiliar. No name, no preview, just digits. I unlocked the phone under the table and read the message. "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your son." I read it again. Same clipped tone. Periods where there should have been hesitation. It didn't feel like a joke. It felt deliberate. Across the table, Grayson was still talking. Something about refinancing. I nodded once, not hearing a word. My hand was steady, but I could feel my heart press against my ribs like it wanted out. "I just need to use the restroom," I said, rising with a calm I didn't feel. "Down the hall, you remember," he said. Already reaching for his fork, I shut the bathroom door and turned the lock. The sound clicked louder than usual. Then the number called. I hesitated, but answered. "Hello?" The voice came through low, rushed, almost like a whisper under breath. "Carmen. Yes, it's Raina." Raina. His ex. I hadn't spoken to her since they split up. She'd sent a short apology note for not staying in touch. But that was it. I barely recognized her voice, but it was sharp with urgency now. "You have to leave," she said. "Right now. What are you talking about?" "Don't drink anything. He wants access to your phone, your fingerprint. He's been planning this." I sank onto the edge of the tub, the cold porcelain grounding me. "You're not making any sense. He's desperate." I didn't know how far it would go, but when I saw the car parked out front, she trailed off. "Just please don't let him near your phone." The call ended before I could ask anything else. I looked at the glass of cranberry juice I hadn't touched. Still full, still red. I unlocked my phone again and opened my security app. Then I pressed record. Grayson wasn't always like this. There was a time when he used to tuck himself under my arm on the couch, his head just reaching my ribs, and whisper, "You're the best mom in the world." I believed him, not because I needed to, but because I wanted it to be true. I wanted to believe I had done enough. I dropped out of college when I found out I was pregnant. His father was long gone by the time I started showing. There were no custody battles, no child support, just silence. I worked at the public library by day and cleaned offices at night. I remember falling asleep in a plastic chair during his kindergarten orientation and waking up embarrassed, drool on my sleeve. But I never missed a parent-teacher meeting. I never let him go without. When he turned 18, I emptied what was left of my savings into his first semester. I took out a small personal loan when the books cost more than we expected, then another when he changed majors. And again when he said he had a business idea that just needed a little boost to launch. It never launched, but I kept giving. In the beginning, he always said thank you, hugged me, called on Sundays, told me about girls he liked, classes he hated, professors who were unfair. He still laughed like he used to, but then it started to fade. The texts became one-liners. The calls dropped off. When he did reach out, it was usually about money. Rent was late. His car needed new tires. He'd promised to pay me back, and I'd say it was okay. But it never came. He became quieter, sharper, still polite, still civil, but different. More like a man who remembered how to sound like a son without really being one. I told myself it was stress, that he'd come around. Then last year, I said no. He asked for $5,000. I told him I couldn't. He didn't reply. A week passed, then a month. My number sat untouched on his phone. Now here I was, seated across from him again, a glass full of something I hadn't touched, pretending it meant we were healing. I returned to the table with a faint apology and tucked my phone back into my purse. Grayson looked up, mid-chew, and gave a small nod. All good, he asked, his tone even, pleasant, just needed a moment. I said, old lady bladder. He chuckled politely and resumed eating. I glanced at the glass of cranberry juice still untouched. The red looked darker now, thicker, too smooth for something that was usually cheap and watery. I reached for it, wrapped my fingers around the glass, and brought it to my lips without drinking. I tilted it just enough to give the illusion, then set it down again with a nod of approval. Still like cranberry, I said. You remembered. He smiled. Of course I did. We returned to small talk. He asked about the library, if I was still helping with the local literacy program. I answered in generalities. He made a joke about my tech skills and I played along, smiling in the way I'd learned to just enough to avoid questions. He wasn't always good at hiding his motives. Tonight, though, he was trying harder. His sentences were smoother, his body language practiced. It was like watching someone who'd studied old footage of himself and rehearsed the parts that used to come naturally. You seem tired, he said, almost too casually. You okay a bit? I didn't sleep much last night. Want to rest for a bit? You can lie down on the couch if you'd like. I hesitated. He tilted his head. Just 15 minutes. I'll clean up. There was something rehearsed in the offer. It wasn't just kindness. It was timing. I suppose that wouldn't hurt. I said, you're sure, of course. You're home. That word didn't sit right. Home. He helped me stand and guided me to the couch. I moved slower than I needed to, letting my body pretend fatigue I didn't feel. As I sank into the cushions, he grabbed a throw blanket from the armchair and draped it over my legs. His touch was gentle, careful, like he was tucking in a child. I let my head rest back. My eyes closed. I listened. Then I felt it, his hand brushing lightly against mine. Positioning my thumb, I stayed still, my breathing even, shallow. I let my body sink into the couch like I was truly tired, like the drink had done what it was meant to do. I felt the blanket shift slightly as someone knelt beside me. Then the soft weight of fingers curling around my wrist. A pause. Then the gentle press my thumb against glass. The subtle vibration confirmed it. The phone had unlocked. I wanted to flinch. Instead, I kept still. Years of motherhood had taught me how to fake sleep well enough to fool a toddler. Tonight, I used it to fool my son. "She's out," came a low voice. Danica. I hadn't even realized she was here. So that was her car out front. "Okay," Grayson said quietly. "Let's do this." I heard the faint tapping of the screen. Swipes. Pauses. "She has everything saved," he muttered. "Routing number?" Danica asked. "I've got it. She always keeps her main checking on auto login." "Not all of it," he said a moment later. "Just enough to settle it." "Settle what?" The next voice was Danica's again. Almost hushed. "It's asking for a code." A beat of silence. Then the soft thud of frustration. "Two-step," she muttered. "She changed it." Grayson said, "More tapping." A pause. Another sigh. "Try another app," he said. "Try Venmo." Same thing. Everything's locked. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Danica. Put the phone back. The same fingers that had lifted my hand now returned the device. I felt its weight settle beside me again on the couch. Someone adjusted the blanket. A slow exhale. The tension in the air shifted as they stepped back. I waited. One breath, 2, 10 more. Then I blinked slowly and opened my eyes, as if waking from a fog. I sat up just enough to press a hand to my temple and let out a soft breath. "Sorry," I said. Voice hoarse. Think I nodded off. Grayson looked at me like I was a puzzle that had rearranged itself mid-solve. "You okay?" he asked. "I think I just need a little air." I picked up my phone as if it were just that. My phone. Not the tool they had just tried to use against me. Not the proof I was no longer safe here. He didn't try to stop me. Neither did she. I walked to the door, paused for my shoes, and smiled like this had been a perfectly ordinary visit. "Thanks for dinner," I said. And I left. They thought they'd outgrown me. That somewhere between college loans and unreturned calls, I'd stayed stuck in the past, still folding laundry with handwritten checkbooks and passwords scribbled on sticky notes. But what they didn't know was that I now teach women older than me how to spot phishing links and freeze credit reports. Every Thursday afternoon, I sit in a church basement with laptops that barely boot and show retirees how to check if their identity has been stolen. It's not glamorous work, but it makes a difference. And it taught me more than I expected, especially about people who assume you're too slow to understand what's being done to you. Something about Grayson's invitation had felt wrong from the start. No apology, no emotional bridge, just dinner. Like the months of silence had been some kind of buffer, like I was supposed to be grateful to be let back in. So the night before, I changed my banking passwords. I turned off facial recognition. I reconfigured fingerprint access. I set my financial apps to require two-factor authentication from a separate device and created fake folders filled with decoy accounts just in case they got curious. Then I enabled the recorder. Not a visible one. No blinking dot or red wave icon. Just a silent background app I'd learned about from a woman in one of my Tuesday classes. Her son had been forging her signature. She showed me how to hide apps on Android devices, and I'd returned the favor by teaching her to flag suspicious bank activity. I left my thumbprint access open. I wanted them to get that far. I wanted the phone to open, and it did. Everything they said, every whisper, every number read aloud. Every careless admission was now tucked inside a file I named after a grocery list. The moment I got home, I backed it up in 3 places, one on the cloud, one on a secure drive, and one on a flash stick I'd hidden in the back of my old recipe binder. If they ever tried to deny it, I wouldn't need to argue. I wouldn't need to scream. I'd just press play. The hardest part was pretending I didn't know. The next morning, I drove back to Grayson's place. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to make it look like everything was normal. I knocked lightly, carrying the container I'd promised his favorite lemon bars. I needed to give him nothing to hold suspicion against. He opened the door with the same half smile, maybe even a little warmer this time. Danica wasn't there. The apartment smelled faintly of soap and stale coffee. I handed him the container and thanked him again for dinner. "You feeling better today?" he asked. That same practiced concern on his face. "Much," I said. "Think it was just fatigue. Nothing more." He nodded, like that settled something. We chatted for a few minutes. Light stuff. Weather. Work. I mentioned the mystery novel again. Said I finally finished it. He asked about the ending, and I gave a vague answer, something about the killer being obvious in hindsight. That made him laugh. Before I left, I reached out for a hug. I didn't mean to. Not really. It was muscle memory. He stepped forward. His arms went around me. I let them. Then I hugged him back. Briefly. Like I was saying goodbye without saying it. The warmth of his jacket, the scent of his soap. These things had once meant safety. Now they meant calculation. I did the same with Danica when she stepped out from the hallway. A polite nod. A gentle hug. A goodbye. I even thanked her for the casserole, though I hadn't touched a bite. At the door, I paused. "Thank you both," I said. "It was good to see you." And it was, in a way, because now I knew, not just what they tried to do, but who they really were when they thought I wasn't looking. I walked to my car without turning back. No questions, no accusations. Just one long, steady breath as I shut the door and started the engine. The next place I drove wasn't home. The police station was quiet, tucked between a laundromat and a tax office. No sirens, no chaos. Just a slow-moving ceiling fan and the hum of fluorescent lights. I walked in and waited my turn behind a man asking about a parking ticket. When he left, I stepped forward. "I need to report a crime," I said. The woman behind the glass didn't blink. "What kind attempted fraud?" I said. "Unauthorized access. Drugging. I believe." She hesitated now. "Do you know who did it?" "Yes," I said. "My son." That got her full attention. Within minutes. I was sitting in a small room with an officer in a plain uniform. He didn't ask for a story. He asked for facts. I gave them. I played the recording. Every word they'd whispered while I pretended to sleep. The names, the intent, the failed login attempts, the voice that said, "She always blacks out." He listened to the whole thing without stopping me. When the last tap echoed through the file, he looked up. "You said your phone was also accessed." I opened my banking app, scrolled to the activity log, and pointed to the time-stamped attempts. Denied. "Thanks to two-step," I said. He nodded. Took notes. Typed into a system that looked older than most library databases. Still, he was focused. Professional. "This is serious." He said, "I know. Do you feel safe right now?" I left. "I'm staying with a friend." "I'm fine." He asked a few more questions, no judgment. No tone of disbelief. Then he asked if I wanted to press charges. I didn't hesitate. "Yes." I said, "I want this on record." He nodded, tapped a few more keys, and handed me a case number scribbled on a pale yellow slip. When I left, I didn't feel victorious, just steady. Something irreversible had been set in motion. For a few days, nothing came. No texts, no calls, no awkward attempts to explain or spin what happened. Just stillness. Like the moment after a glass shatters and no one moves yet. Then it started. The first voicemail came from Grayson. His voice was tight, controlled. "How could you do this to your own family?" he said. "You didn't even talk to me first. You just went to the cops." I didn't reply. The next was Danica. She sounded breathless, indignant. "You didn't have to go this far," she said. We didn't even take anything. You're blowing this up like it was criminal. I deleted it before she finished. But then came Raina. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. I'm sorry. Carmen, I should have warned you sooner. I knew he was capable of worse. I just didn't think he'd try it with you. I guess I hoped I was wrong. I saved her message. Then I blocked all the others. Phone numbers, group chats, emergency contacts, every digital door they could knock on. I closed them. The charges went through quietly. Attempted fraud, biometric misuse, conspiracy. No one made a scene. They didn't fight it. Maybe the evidence spoke too clearly. Maybe they thought it would pass faster if they just signed what needed signing and moved on. They avoided jail time probation, fines. A court-ordered no-contact agreement. That last one mattered most to me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. Space to rebuild my life without checking the lock twice every night. I heard through a cousin that they sold the condo. Something about legal fees, debts, needing to downsize. No one said anything directly to me. Just fragments passed along by people who didn't know better than to try. I didn't answer any of them. The silence returned, but this time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt earned, peaceful, and I realized I didn't miss the noise. The fridge hums softly in the quiet. Inside, every shelf is mine. Greek yogurt, sharp cheddar, a small bottle of almond milk. Nothing is here for anyone else. No compromises. No last-minute calls asking if I could pick up that one thing they forgot. Just what I want. What I'll eat. When I choose, I used to shop with their preferences in mind. Always Grayson's juice. His favorite cereal. Something Danica liked, just in case. My list was always edited down to make room for theirs. Now, it's just mine. The group chats have gone silent. Not muted, gone. I deleted them one night while folding laundry. I thought it would feel dramatic. It didn't. It felt like closing a book I'd read too many times. Knowing exactly how it ended. No longer needing to underline any more pages. I make tea and sit at the kitchen table with a notepad. Not a journal. Not a letter to them, just a piece of lined paper. At the top, I write my name. Carmen Halstead. Then, underneath, a sentence. You survived without their thanks. Now live without their permission. I stare at the words for a long time. Not to second-guess them, just to feel them sink in. Like marrow reforming in bones that once bent too often. I don't know who I'm becoming yet, but I know this version of me doesn't answer to anyone who would use my love as leverage. She doesn't confuse silence for peace. And she doesn't hand over trust just because someone remembers how she likes her juice. I fold the note and place it in the drawer where bills used to pile. There's space there now. And tomorrow, I'll use it